we're gonna, you know, if they're gonna beat us, we're gonna try to make sure it isn't Kawhi. They threw a lot of bodies at him. They, you know, from what I remember them telling me, you want to have Kawhi put the ball on the floor, and they did that a lot in this game. And when he put the ball on the floor, they stripped him. You know, Nick Nurse is just so underrated as a coach. And, you know, they did win the championship last year, and he had a lot to do with that. And of course, Kawhi had more to do with it, but. Their schemes are good.
Their schemes are good. They're a great defensive team, but Siakam is a great defender also.
He is incredible.
You know, and he has a chance to watch this guy all year long. I always said that about players when they went to other teams that I practiced with, and I had to guard them, like Antoine Walker, for instance. I was like, I know all his moves.
Right.
Like, I know exactly his tendencies, what he's going to do, so when he came back, I'll lock him up. You know, I knew everything he would do, and that's the same thing the Raptors seen it every single day.
Especially because he was shooting threes in a row.
I mean, to your point about Nick Nurse, he didn't get the job because they were sort of, you know, floundering around for a coach. He got the job because Masai Ujiri had so much confidence in him.
Right.
He moved a very good Coach of the Year award winner out of that job because he thought Nick Nurse so badly needed a shot. And he obviously proved himself winning that championship. And then with this team, which is an entirely different kind of challenge.
It is.
Especially they were thin to begin with, and now with, of course, Serge and Kyle Lowry out.
Those are two big guys to lose.
Right, so we'll see how they go there. You talked about Kawhi, though. Here's what you do against Kawhi Leonard. That is going to be a lot harder when Paul George comes back. Adrian Wojnarowski reporting Paul George expected to make his season debut this week, either Wednesday or Thursday. They've got a back-to-back with Paul George leaning toward the latter game on Thursday. But Kawhi has not been playing back-to-backs, and it doesn't look like he's going to. So do you think that PG should debut with Kawhi so that they're together, or pick the day that Kawhi is not on the floor?
Well, I think it doesn't matter either way, but if you pick the day when he's not on the floor, it allows Paul to be the #1 option. Therefore, you can try to highlight him, start trying to get him in more of a rhythm because he's been out so long. And then when you bring Kawhi back, so I'll mix it up throughout the first 15, 20 games until Paul George gets a rhythm. Once I see he's starting getting his legs under him, he's getting a rhythm, then I'll start playing them together more. Because what's important is having them both down the stretch. If you can have them both down the stretch for, like you say, your last 20, 25 games playing together, they'll be fine.
Yeah, but the flip side of that would be that if you come back and Kawhi's on the floor with you, he knows how to make things easier for you. Because he was out all last year too. He understands what it takes and where you need the ball and how you can get movement going for him. I would say this. If I'm Paul George, I don't really care what Kawhi Leonard's doing. I'm not even kidding. I mean, this is to a point, right? If Kawhi Leonard has a persistent injury issue, then we just need to know that. Because if he's
healthy, the league sort of told everybody that last week, right after the controversy back and forth with Doc. The league's press release said a patella tendon issue.
Right. So if that's the case, let's just call it what it is, and don't put Doc Rivers and everybody else in the position, or the league in the position they've been put in. So if I'm Paul George, I'm just going to worry about playing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to worry about who's playing, who isn't playing. I got to worry about me coming back and taking care of my team and helping my team.
I agree, although you know they target games for certain guys to come back. If you know, I mean, the Phoenix Suns for a long time. Everybody was coming back against the Phoenix Suns. Now, to the Suns' credit, to Monty Williams' credit, nobody wants to come back against the Phoenix Suns.
Really great.
We'll see, but it is a back-to-back Wednesday, Thursday. Only one of those games is a national television game, so I would assume, I don't know anything, Kawhi has played the second night of the back-to-back most recently, but I would assume perhaps this week that the Clippers would be encouraged, if he's only going to play one of those games, to pick the national TV game. If you're placing bets on when he's going to play, we will have to see. Coming up, let's talk about Tony Parker, because it's always fun to get to talk about Tony Parker. We don't get to do it enough anymore. Spurs retired stars jersey got us thinking, where do San Antonio's big...
And the bond, that's what I love the most. I love you too, and we'll be together forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up one more time for number 9, Tony Parker.
Man, the Spurs really do those jersey retirements right. Remember they did Manu's last year. This is so classy. Welcome back to The Jump. Now joining us is our front office insider, Emilio Hassi. And I want to talk about what we just saw with Tony Parker's jersey retirement. When you think about the various big threes, and we saw him shout out his guys there. By the way, I'd like to say about Tim Duncan, if he doesn't speak to you in the first year, he just might not be speaking that year. It might not be personal. Anyway, you heard him shout out Tim and Manu. So I want to know where you think their big three ranks among the all-time trios.
It's hard to rank them. I mean, if you name them, you got Bird, Parrish, Kevin McHale, Scott, Worthy Jabbar, right? Magic. You got obviously you have.
It's 4, by the way, though. You don't get to, you get to pick
Okay,
for a team.
I try to shout out these guys. Right? You got the Heatles.
Yeah.
Right, Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. You've got the Warriors with KD, Steph, and Clay. You go further back, you got Willis Reed, Walt Frazier, Earl the Pearl. You got Bill Russell, and take your pick of whoever. You got this gentleman right here with Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen. The list goes on and on.
I hear you just not answering.
But
That's
I mean,
what I hear.
it's one of those questions that can't be answered. But what we can say that's special about these guys is 3 guys who were not born in this country, right? Which is very, very rare. You think about Tim Duncan.
Yep.
He's American, but he grew up in the Virgin Islands.
Yep.
He was a swimmer up until a hurricane destroyed his swimming pool, so then he had to pick up basketball.
Poor thing.
But just the idea that the 3 guys who are not from here would be play the most games together and win the most as a result. That longevity, it's just something truly special.
And we talked a lot on the show yesterday. I remember so specifically covering some of the prejudice against Tony Parker and just the people who didn't want to give him a shot because of where he came from and what he was and how he just kept like a bulldog fighting back and saying, I deserve this. And learned, too, that he took the criticism and got better from it.
And internally, by the way, forget about the
Yeah.
outside world.
Right.
He had to. Pop didn't believe in him. Pop
That's
was
what I
an
mean.
RC and
Pop didn't believe in Ginobili either
That's
in the
true.
beginning. So.
well, I mean, Ginobili was wild. That was the other thing. Like
Yeah.
he was wild.
You
so
think?
So can you bail us out here, Jackie? Because Mr. I won't commit to anything.
All right, so I'll commit to this. To me, the most lethal trio during their time together, and you didn't even mention them,
Who?
Jordan, Pippen, and Dennis Rodman.
Yes.
72 wins,
Yes.
by far the most lethal. But this is the most enduring, and I think it's important. Because remember now, you could do Russell, Cousy, and Heinsohn. You could do Russell, Cousy, and Sam Jones. You can't even decide who the third one is. So that's why I think in terms of enduring, these guys transcended a decade and still won together. And there was never any doubt who the 3 were. So I think that's what separates them. Hopefully that answers.
I think when you look at them, if you look at them individually, you say the big 3s across the board, whether it's Jordan, Magic, Bird, you're going to say, all right, Bird, McHale, Parrish, Hall of Famers. Jordan, Robin, Pippen, Hall of Famers. Now, when you look at these guys, you know Tim Duncan's going to be a Hall of Famer, possibly Manu Ginobili, but will Tony Parker be a Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
So,
I think he will be.
if he does, then, you know, you can say, all right, this is where they rank. But I think until that's done, of course they've won more games, they've won a lot of titles, but, you know, you got a lot of guys, big 3s that are like, top 50, 3 guys in the top 50.
Right.
So I think you got to rank them like that. Even though they won more, they've been together longer, I think you rank them amongst their individual rank in history compared to the other guys.
Looking at guys as a big 3 had kind of fallen out for a while, and when Ray Allen and KG joined you in Boston, the terminology kind of came back into vogue of calling
Yeah, it
you
was
guys
great.
the big
The
3.
new big 3. we
What did
call
that
them.
feel like when people started calling you that?
Well, before that, it was about having 2 guys.
Right.
You know, and that's what all that mattered. But when you had 3 guys on one team of that caliber, you haven't seen that in quite some time. You know, 3 guys who've been 10-time All-Stars. You got an
Good call.
MVP already, Ray Allen, multiple All-Stars, and you haven't had 3 guys together with these type of accolades come together yet. And so, you know, it formed a new big 3, and thus you saw the Heatles were born right after that.
Right.
Right.
And then so on and so on.
Now, I know that you and Rajon are tight now, and KG. There was a little bit, though, of calling these guys the big 3, not the first year, but after Rondo started improving, right? It caused a little acrimony, right?
No, but it was.
It became a big 4, though.
No, he did. But
He became a big 4.
But you know what else? I think that union for Ray Allen catapulted him into a completely different stratosphere because he played very well on a lot of different teams. He had to sacrifice shots, as you know this. He had to sacrifice his role. Did it so beautifully that